So we're doing something quite a bit different today than what we normally do, and it's something I've been playing a lot of over the last weekend, and it's the Roguelike mod from TheHaboo and Tyler. And so I want to just give you a look into the normal run I do through it, I guess. And so for those who don't know what it actually is, it's essentially just a one life sort of situation, like a typical roguelike, meaning you get one chance to go through the entire game, or one life essentially, and everything's randomized each time, and your goal is to get to the end or to the last boss as quickly as possible. It's not the best description, but if you know what a roguelike is already, it's just that. It's great. It's not particularly challenging, I would say. In some aspects it definitely is, and hard mode, of course, is really, really hard. But once you get a hang of the mechanics of it, it ends up feeling pretty good. And especially with like this first boss, once you learn a few, cheesy mechanics, it makes the fight pretty easily. So the first few bosses are not bad at all, but I would say it steps up in difficulty pretty heavily after that. But what I found is that if you just use daggers throughout the whole game, you pretty much run into no problems whatsoever. And I play on a controller, and I play without animation canceling. So if you are on a keyboard and you animation cancel, I would say it's like easily twice as easy as normal. So yeah, if I get the broken trident, like I'm pretty much set for damage for the next two bosses, and it's a very smooth run overall. I've been trying to sort of get a little bit faster of a time, but it's not, it's going okay, let's say, but I don't think I'm going to try to get any kind of record by any means. But yeah, so you pretty much go through like 5 floors with some random things like this, where you do an egg hunt for a bonus chest. And some floors you have to kill a certain amount of monsters in order to get a reward. And some floors are just normal floors where you just kill everything until a ladder appears and go on to the next one. This one I think is probably one of my favorites, just because it's pretty easy to get one of the better rewards. There are floors like the slingshot floor earlier, which I think is pretty awful. It is not easy to do if you are a controller player, because the slingshot mechanic is so bad. And but I guess if you're on a keyboard and mouse, you're probably good. And this is probably one of my favorite bosses. He's not too hard, but man, I do a bad job at this fight almost every time. So yeah, it's not too challenging, but it just has a nice pattern, a nice rhythm to it. And the music's good. Everything about it's pretty good. And so it's like an entirely custom mod built by TheHaboo and his friend Tyler, who I don't know if that individual actually has like other names they go by, but as far as I know, it's just Tyler. So, and it's a ton of fun, and I really encourage anybody who's interested in the combat in Stardew to check it out. I think right now, like, some people have reached floor 330 or something like that, which is far beyond anything I'll ever attempt, mostly because of some pretty intense bugs towards the end of the game, where the load times will be like 4 minutes. I think it's like a memory leak or something like that, so that's kind of stopped me in my tracks. But I still enjoy this early game, trying to get a better time for that. But yeah, I don't know, you'll never notice me buying anything more than just daggers. With the crit from a dagger, you're just way too powerful to do anything else. It doesn't make sense as a non-animation canceller to use a sword. If you're using animation canceling, you can, it feels really cheaty to me. Even when I do animation cancel, I don't use it on weapons because I think it's too much of an advantage, I guess. So if you are using animation canceling, a sword is probably just as well, because you could just hit so rapidly, and it kind of makes this whole game pretty null and void. Like, everything's pretty easy. It makes everything almost too easy, in my opinion. So yeah, that's why I'm rolling without it. And this boss, this is probably one of my least favorite bosses, just because I am insanely bad at it. It just feels like so overwhelming. And like, it was even nerfed. Like, this is a later version of the game, and the original one was like way more projectiles. And I think on hard mode it's closer to the original. And man, it's just tough, because if you get hit by those things, you get frozen in place, and then you'll probably get struck by lightning. And then on top of that, he'll hit you with like an additional slow effect. So yeah, it gets kind of rough. That and like hitboxes are weird. Like, he just hit me and I didn't feel like I was close to him at all. But that's just kind of Stardew Valley. Like, some of the combat is a little suspect, to say the least. But yeah, like right now I'm just getting lit up back and forth. Yeah, so I don't know. I think a no healing item run might be something I work on in the future, just because that's the only thing that would make the game a little bit more balanced. I feel like when you can heal through almost everything after you like beat the final boss, the game gets a little bit too easy. And so I usually just quit right after I beat the boss anymore. Just because I know, like, oh, once you get the right power-ups, you're pretty much invincible until you get one shot later on. And I don't know how I feel about that. But I've probably already put, I probably put like 12 hours into this already, which is way too much. And this boss, man, you can look how many times I miss with the slingshot. It's terrible. The slingshot is just not a console-friendly thing. It's so awful. Or a controller, I guess I should say not console, but controller and console. It's like, if you use the D-pad, you can't angle your shot. And if you use the actual analog stick, it still feels a little off. Because with a mouse, you can just like literally put your cursor on top of the thing you're aiming at. And you can't do that with a joystick, obviously. And then there, I guess he glitched out and didn't send a little blue thing, so I don't know what happened there. But yeah, there's all kinds of like, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about all the stuff you can do and all the power-ups, because I think it's kind of fun to explore some of it. So if you don't want to see like the final boss, for example, I wouldn't watch this until the end, because I will show it. But there's so many different crazy power-ups you can get, and you know, there's like the fortune teller lady will give you different power-ups too, which I never do, because they're never worth it in my opinion. But it's really interesting. They put a lot of really cool concepts in it, and they just made something really interesting. And it's kind of refreshing to see a mod that isn't just more characters or automation or cheats. Like, this completely redoes the game. And it's just really cool. It's almost like this combined with the Stardew RPG, and you can pretty much make like an isometric RPG game that's even more like combat focused. And maybe Haunted Chocolatier will be similar to this. Who knows? It would be cool if it was, but I mean, obviously Concerned Ape isn't going to say much. Though I know he has been playing this mod as well. On the very first day, he was like top 3 of the leaderboards, so from what I understand, he seems to enjoy it quite a bit. But yeah, it's just really cool, and I think you should check it out if you're on PC. Obviously, if you're not, this is not an option. It might be available on mobile, I don't know, I kind of stay away from that world, just because mobile is basically an entirely different thing at this point. And yeah, I'm just getting more daggers. A lot of the time I find myself with a lot of extra money, and it's just because you don't need a ton of stuff. I really think once you have a good dagger, as long as you can move out of the way of stuff, you're you're pretty much where you need to be. This floor though, this is I think it's a really fun floor, but if you catch it early on, it's really brutal because everything does so much damage. But for some reason, like, that damage falls off. And so, like, if you see right now, everybody does like 1 damage to me. And yeah, so it's not really a threat. As compared to, like, yeah, sometimes you get at floor 2 and these guys will hit you for 9 and you get killed really, really quick. But this is one of the few that I think are always worth doing because the rewards are pretty decent most of the time. And then there's the Forge, which I won't talk about the Forge, but it's pretty cool that it's in the game and there's a lot of unique stuff about it. And it just makes the run that much more, like, dynamic every time. Oh, those crabs. And I can't stand those crabs. They, like, for some reason, these ones, they like to stay in their shell a lot. So you always have to break them open with your pickaxe. And they're just very frustrating. And these squids, too. Squids do, like, an insane amount of damage. And they're pretty tanky. So they're pretty rough. I think I dislike them more than even, like, royal serpents, which we'll fight later on. And then here's, like, what I would consider the hardest boss in the game. Just because you get overwhelmed so quickly. Especially if you don't have, like, a savage ring. And it's just, everything takes you down to, like, half health. It's just brutal. But I do like that they chose, like, they chose, like, the most relaxing song in the game for probably the most stressful boss fight out of all of them. Just because, yeah, you get overwhelmed. Like, this one went okay. I think he only got, or she only got 1 extra egg out. Because when she puts those eggs down, they hatch into, like, a ton more bugs, you know? So you have to kind of manage all the ads. At the same time, you have to interrupt the boss when she tries to lay eggs. And you also obviously have to do quite a bit of damage to her. And, like, luckily she doesn't take a ton of hits to kill, but she also does a lot of damage and her hitbox is pretty massive. So it's another dagger problem, but if you're too close to her, it's pretty easy to accidentally get hit. But yeah, for sure one of my more difficult bosses to fight. Especially, I tend to get, like, really greedy. Once I see they're, like, 1 hit away, that's what causes, like, 90% of my deaths. I get greedy and run towards the boss. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much. I'll probably do a couple more attempts to see if I can get a sub 30 time. And then if they ever fix the memory leak issue with the deeper floors, I'll probably do, like, an attempt at 400 plus floors when I have time. It's like a 3 or 4 hour run, I would say, to get that deep. And I don't really have 4 hours, so. Also, these floors are brutal. These spiders are just the most obnoxious things. And that's the ghost that, like, burps in your face and you can't eat afterwards. So, also fun. But yeah, I don't know. It gets to a point where, like, I'll start ignoring crates and gems because I just won't need any money. And that's how you know you're kind of, like, at the end game, when you're just sort of waiting out extra power-ups. And, like, I guess what I always hope for, like, a really strong crit build in the early game. Like, if you get Acrobat early, it's really nice. Or if you get whatever the one is that makes your crits more deadly, you can just absolutely steamroll some of this stuff. But here's, like, this is my favorite boss by far. It's a big old bee, which I love, and it has the Bone Zone song. It's just good. I don't know. It's not. It's hard because she does a lot of damage, but I just really like it. I like everything about this fight. I think there's a lot of fun, different like, tactics, even though I'm kind of just, like, face tanking it. You can do these. I mean, I think you can do all these fights without taking any damage, I think. And This is just a fun one. I love this one a lot. It's a really cool design. But yeah, look how much damage. You just like start melting once they start hitting you. And here I go trying to face tank it again. And luckily I didn't get killed, but this is the only video I'm gonna do about this series, just because I want to see I want to show people like what it's like and see if I can get some more folks interested in it. I know right now he's running a competition for, I think, a couple $100 in Amazon gift cards for people who can do it the fastest and who can dive in the deepest. So if that's something that you're interested in, I'll leave a link to the mod in the description. And I would definitely encourage you to check it out and check out TheHaboo when he streams this, because he streams it pretty frequently. Or as far as I know, he will be streaming the hard mode quite a bit this week. And the competition runs for another 10 or 11 days. So if you want to do it, my advice is to start very, very soon, because people are already getting pretty wild. You got guys like Blade and a lot of the Do crew that take competitions pretty seriously, and they tend to make progress pretty fast. So I know like Piano Addict has made pretty aggressive strides towards really fast runs and really deep runs. So yeah, I would say if you're going to get in there now. But if you're into more chill Stardew stuff, this might not be up your alley so much. But it's great. I don't know. This boss I don't really mind. I don't struggle with it that much. It just takes forever. And I think it's because I play it too safe. Because if he does hit you, it does a ton of damage. So I just kind of weave in and out. I kind of duck back and forth just to get a couple hits on him. And it gets really, really chaotic, especially on hard mode. But like, yeah, this boss I left sped up because it took a really, really long time to get through it. And I have a bad habit of always like going towards the bottom of the screen, and then the bosses will go down and you have to then hit them from above. And if you play Stardew a lot, you know that hitting any enemy from above is a mistake, because the hitboxes, the way they work, you're at a massive disadvantage basically fighting anything from above. So it's a situation I get myself into pretty constantly. And this is a sloppy run, I gotta say. Maybe I'll do one more video of this particular one, but this one I definitely got a little sloppy with it. I was really eager to get a sub 30-minute run, and I didn't, I guess. But so I was trying to rush a little more than normal. This is where things get a little bit harder for sure, because you have like the smart shooters instead of the crossfire. So they aim directly at you, and then he shoots at you as well and speeds up. So it's pretty easy to lose at this part of the fight. Like I just used 2 life elixirs in a matter of seconds. But yeah, so I'm at 29 minutes. There's no chance of sub 30 because I still have the one last boss. And the last boss, I really like the last boss. It feels so chaotic, and it just feels really hard. And like, obviously that's the goal of it, but the last boss is very high stress. And it only takes a few minutes. That's what's so crazy about some of these bosses, is it's like a minute or two, but it's the most stressful minute or two you're ever gonna play in Stardew Valley. So I don't know, it's just kind of fun. Also the bats are no joke in this run. They do so much damage. And same, yeah, Royal Serpents. Those are like, in actual Stardew Valley, they're one of the more damaging enemies. They're not too bad in this, as long as you have like a sword or a hammer to knock them away. But this is one of the few places I actually want a weapon besides a dagger, because they get pretty rough. But yeah, it's a really fresh take on a mod, and I encourage you to check it out. I hope these guys try to do something else in the future too, and this is just the start of them modding. I know TheHaboo is usually like a no mod ever kind of guy. Like I've never even seen him play Stardew in Smappy before, aside from like if he was in a challenge with other creators, you know. So it's kind of crazy to see he's the guy who did this, and him and Tyler came up with so many cool things that I really hope they decide to do a little more in the future. But yeah, this is a hard boss. It's not technically the very last boss, but it's the last boss if you're looking for a timed run. I didn't want to spoil any of the bosses afterwards, because the game, once you beat this, it kind of loops over and just it gets harder and harder and harder. And so I decided to cut it after this. I don't want to give away too much. This run was not particularly amazing. I only made it to floor 77, I think. And you can go, I mean, there's an infinite amount. I assume you can make it to thousands, but I don't actually know. It might get to a point where enemies just have too much health and one hit will kill you. I don't actually know. I think my record is 140 something, so not too impressive, but I was happy to see that I am on the leaderboard. And yeah, I don't normally get too competitive, but for some reason this has made me feel a little bit of that competitive energy, so we'll see if I keep rolling with it. I will have I'll have a normal Stardew video up on Friday, and a normal like the 100 days sleeping run. But I wanted to get this out a little bit earlier, just so in case anybody wasn't aware of this mod, they could check it out and get in there too, I guess. But yeah, and then I'll have Pokemon up tomorrow. Maybe I'll do just maybe I'll do Stardew tomorrow and Friday and just leave the Pokemon for another day or the weekend or something. But yeah, so I ended up with 34 minutes and 57 seconds. But I accidentally stopped here, and it turns out the timer doesn't stop till you get on the ladder, so I'm at 35:10, which was, I don't know, pretty good. So anyway, I will see you all next time.